There's a new rumor going around that The Lord of the Rings of Power Season 2 is going to make a reference to Rivendell. Let's get into this story here. This rumor comes from Fellowship of Fans, who have been extremely accurate on a lot of The Lord of the Rings of Power rumors and scoops. They got a lot of stuff right from Season 1, and we'll see if they get any of this stuff right for Season 2. So I do think they are an extremely credible source for Lord of the Rings of Power rumors. But this is what they have to say. Rivendell, Imladris, is a location and term internally listed in the production of the Rings of Power Season 2. Though this production listing can range from just a dialogue mention of the location, teaser, or seeing the location itself on screen, Rivendell, Imladris' production codename is Gildan. So it does sound like there will be some kind of reference to Rivendell or Imladris. It's unclear what it is. They seem to speculate that it could be a dialogue mention of the location or potentially a teaser or seeing the location itself on screen. So it's likely, like if we go back and look at some of their other rumors here, this is kind of what I'm speculating here. It's likely the reference to Imladris or Rivendell will occur towards the end of the series, as a previous rumor from Fellowship of Fans claimed that the second season will end with a 2-episode battle depicting the fall of Eregion. Fellowship of Fans reported back in August Arondir will be present at the 2-episode battle in the Rings of Power Season 2 alongside Elrond, whilst fighting Adar's army. In a video providing more detail about this rumor, Fellowship of Fans' Strider said, "What should be happening, I don't think it's officially confirmed, but when you look at everything, you do the math, basically it's 99% the 2-episode battle will be at the end of the season, like the fall of Eregion." When specifically asked by guest Nixie if it is indeed the fall of Eregion or if it could be in Mordor, Chen, another person on their panel, responded, "The footage looks like Eregion. There's a lot of drone footage of it, and the battlements, they look like Eregion. They even have like Eregion in the show, at least. It's surrounded by water. It's on a river delta, so they drain that somehow. You can see dried up riverbeds, crashed boats, stuff. So I think it's very certainly Eregion." In their video, they do show a drone shot of what they are describing. You can see battlements. Here, it does look like there's maybe a river or something there off behind it. It's hard to tell just looking at it here from afar, but this is kind of what it's supposed to look like. This is the set that they built. When asked about why it is Adar's army attacking Eregion instead of Sauron's, Strider explained, "I think we came to a similar conclusion that basically they will somehow, in one way or another, they will end up on the same side, like Adar will join Sauron in some way, basically be the commander of his army or something like that, and then he will be made officially." And then Nixie then kind of interrupted and said, "Or Sauron will take the shape of Adar and become Adar." They did recast Adar. It's not Joseph Mall anymore. There's a new actor playing him. I'm not sure who it is off the top of my head right now, but they do have a new actor playing Adar. So there might be some credence to that theory there from Nixie. But if you're unfamiliar with the Second Age and the fall of Eregion, we have this description from Tolkien in the Silmarillion. "It was in Eregion that the counsels of Sauron were most gladly received, for in that land the Noldor desired ever to increase the skill and subtlety of their works. Moreover, they were not at peace in their hearts, since they had refused to return into the West, and they desired both to stay in Middle-earth, which indeed they loved, and yet to enjoy the bliss of those that had departed. Therefore they hearkened to Sauron, and they learned of him many things, for his knowledge was great. In those days the smiths of Ostin Adil surpassed all that they had contrived before, and they took thought, and they made rings of power. But Sauron guided their labors, and he was aware of all that they did, for his desire was to set a bond upon the elves and to bring them under his vigilance. From there Sauron built his one ring, but the elves became aware of him and his plots, and chose to remove their rings. Not only did they remove their 3 rings, but concealed them from Sauron. Upon discovering this, Sauron, quote, was filled with wrath, and he came against them with open war, demanding that all the rings should be delivered to him. Tolkien later wrote, "From that time, war never ceased between Sauron and the elves, and Eregion was laid waste, and Celebrimbor slain, and the doors of Moria were shut." In Unfinished Tales, The Lost Lore of Middle-earth, which was also published posthumously, similar to the Silmarillion by Tolkien's son Christopher Tolkien, it actually provides some details about the Battle of Eregion. When Sauron learned of the repentance and revolt of Celebrimbor, his disguise fell and his wrath was revealed, and gathering a great force, he moved over Calenardon, Rohan, to the invasion of Eriador in the year 1695. When news of this reached Gil-galad, he sent out a force under Elrond Half-Elven, but Elrond had far to go, and Sauron turned north and made it once for Eregion. The scouts and vanguard of Sauron's hosts were already approaching when Celeborn made a sortie and drove them back, but though he was able to join his force to that of Elrond, they could not return to Eregion, for Sauron's host was far greater than theirs, great enough both to hold them off and closely to invest Eregion. At last, the attackers broke into Eregion with ruin and devastation and captured the chief object of Sauron's assault, the House of the Myrdain, where were their smithies and their treasures. Celebrimbor, desperate himself, withstood Sauron on the steps of the great door of the Myrdain, but he was grappled and taken captive, and the house was ransacked. Sauron would then claim the 9 rings and learn the location of the 7 after capturing and torturing Celebrimbor. However, Celebrimbor refused to give up the locations of the 3. After obtaining these rings, Sauron then turned his attention to Elrond's force and the few elves that had escaped from Eregion. Fortunately, they were able to escape Sauron's army because Durin and the elves of Lornan attacked Sauron's host from the rear. He would indeed, this is what Tolkien wrote, he would indeed have been overwhelmed had not Sauron's host been attacked in the rear. For Durin sent out a force of dwarves from Khazad-dûm, and with them came elves of Lornan led by Amroth. Elrond was able to extricate himself, but he was forced away northwards, and it was at that time that he established a refuge and stronghold at Imladris, Rivendell. Sauron withdrew the pursuit of Elrond and turned upon the dwarves and the elves of Lornan, whom he drove back, but the gates of Moria were shut, and he could not enter. Ever afterwards, Moria had Sauron's hate, and all orcs were commanded to harry dwarves whenever they might. So, as noted above, it's after the fall of Eregion that Elrond and his host of elves found Imladris or Rivendell. It's quite possible that in the series' last episode, there could be a reference to Rivendell. I'm imagining a bit of dialogue between Elrond and another character discussing what they plan to name it, or you could see a stinger shot of location as the show concludes its 2nd season. I know a lot of people are kind of saying that this is could be against Tolkien's Legendarium. I actually think this is probably one of the few things that could be accurate if indeed they are showing the Battle of Eregion at the end of the episode and could actually fit in with the timeline that Tolkien has written out. That's in the Appendix B. That's also obviously in the Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales that I just kind of read to you. So I do think that this actually could fit in. But pretty much everything else around it doesn't really make any sense. You've got Adar leading it instead of Sauron. But then you have the theory that Adar is actually Sauron. I don't know. It's Sauron, right? The elves know it. Celebrimbor figured it out. They figured it out almost like 100 years ago. Sauron doesn't go after them for 100 years. I think it's 1600 is when Celebrimbor realizes what Sauron's up to, and then I think then Sauron attacks around 1693, and then I think then at 1695 is maybe when Eregion is sacked. It might be 1697. My dates might be a little bit off there, but they do kind of know about this for quite a bit. Obviously, they weren't ready for him to attack them. But I do, maybe Celebrimbor was sitting on it. I don't know. There's a lot of space there, but obviously you also have a lot of battles happening potentially before the main battle at Eregion. Then you also have stuff happening afterwards as well. And then shortly after that, you do get the Númenóreans. I think they arrive around 1700 and start setting up bases in Middle-earth. So there's a lot of stuff that they could do, and then they're going to skip a lot of it. And they're just going to go straight to this big 2-episode battle at the end of, I assume it's going to be another 8-episode season. So the first six episodes, I guess, are just going to be setting up to leading up to this big battle where Sauron is going to gather his forces. Because he has to build Barad-dûr and everything at this time too. So obviously he's going to be building up his forces too, and then to build up his forces and then attack the elves. So, but again, I do think this actually could fit into the Legendarium based on this previous rumor about the Battle of Eregion. It would take place, so you could get Rivendell actually showing up, and it would make sense, and it would still work. It would be maybe the beginnings of Rivendell. They're building it, putting it together, or it's still the idea as they're fleeing from Sauron's forces. But let me know what you think of this rumor in the comments below.
Subscribe for more.